I saw this object at a restaurant in the Outer Banks. It has ridges and a crank, but it doesn't turn all the way around. Does anyone know what this is used for? This is an antique cork roller press, a 19th century tool used to compress corks before inserting them into bottles. Before modern bottling machinery, pharmacists and winemakers needed a way to temporarily shrink corks so they could fit snugly into narrow bottlenecks. The user would soak the cork to make it pliable, place it into the device, and pull down the handle. A rotating, ridged jaw would then squeeze and roll the cork, reducing its diameter just enough to fit into the bottle, after which it would expand to form a tight seal. The design was patented in 1867 by C.L. Lockman of Carlisle, Pennsylvania. His rotary jaw mechanism became the industry standard, with one fixed jaw and one off-center rotating jaw that gradually compressed the cork. The most well-known manufacturer of these devices was the Enterprise Manufacturing Company of Philadelphia, whose cast-iron models were widely used in pharmacies, hotels, and bottling houses well into the early 20th century. My dad and I found several of these mysterious metal structures while exploring a remote tract of land in western Utah. My dad joked they looked like something aliens might have left behind. Does anyone know what they are? What you found is part of the abandoned Delta Solar Project, a failed experimental energy system. These strange towers were designed to track the sun and focus light onto water pipes using large plastic Fresnel lenses, creating steam to power bladeless turbines. The system never actually worked, but in the 2000s, investors purchased tens of thousands of these solar lenses, drawn in by promises of cheap energy and generous tax credits. The project's inventor, Neldon Johnson, claimed his plastic lenses and patented turbines could generate electricity at half the cost of coal. But in 2018, a federal court ruled the entire operation was fraudulent. Investigators determined that the lenses produced no electricity whatsoever. They were sold primarily as part of a tax shelter scheme that raised over $50 million. I inherited this device from my grandma. It was made in Western Germany, but has no other markings or labels. It looks like it might measure humidity or air pressure. Does anyone know what it is? This is a mid-century Sputnik weather station, a combination barometer, thermometer, and hygrometer made in West Germany during the 1950s and 1960s. Its clear spherical housing and brass antenna rods were inspired by the launch of the Soviet Sputnik satellite in 1957. These stations were produced by the Hüger Barometer Company of Villingen-Schwenningen. The Sputnik became one of the company's most iconic designs and was widely sold throughout Europe during the 1960s. I found this unusual object alongside some antique electronics. It has two wire coils connected to screw terminals and a brass hook hanging from the arch above. It looks like it once had a glass dome covering it. Does anyone know what this device was used for? What you found is a D'Arsonval galvanometer, a precision scientific instrument used to detect and measure small electric currents. Invented in the late 19th century by French physicist Jacques-Arsène d'Arsonval, this type of galvanometer revolutionized electrical measurements by introducing a moving coil mechanism that significantly improved sensitivity and stability. Unlike earlier moving magnet designs, the D'Arsonval model suspended a lightweight coil of wire between the poles of a permanent magnet. When current passed through the coil, it generated a magnetic field that interacted with the magnet's field, causing the coil to rotate proportionally to the current's strength. Devices like this were essential in physics experiments, telegraph systems, and early radio work. I found this strange promotional item that looks like a pen but has a flexible wire instead of a tip. It's marked with a phone number but no area code, which suggests it's from the 1960s or 70s. Does anyone know what it is? What you found is a promotional yarn and needle threader from the 1960s, made for certified temporary personnel, a San Francisco employment agency active during that time. It was used for threading yarn, or thick thread through the eyes of tapestry, or darning needles. The basic idea of a wire loop threader dates back to the 19th century, but the plastic-handled version emerged around the mid-20th century, appearing in patents from the 1940s through the 1980s. I inherited this wooden wind instrument from my great-grandfather. It has finger holes, a plastic mouthpiece. Does anyone know what it is? This is a practice chanter, a woodwind instrument used to learn the great Highland bagpipes. It mimics the melody pipe of a bagpipe, but doesn't include drones or a bag, making it perfect for indoor practice. Practice chanters have been part of Scottish piping tradition for centuries. Early versions were handmade from hollow reed or straw. In the United States, they gained popularity through Highland games and pipe bands in the early 20th century, with beginners learning their first marches and jigs on chanters before graduating to full pipes. I found this strange-looking cast-iron tool at a station in the Murchison region of Australia. It looks like a combination of a vise and an anvil, and the little anvil-shaped piece on top actually comes off. Does anyone know what this tool is? What you found is a Champion blower and forge company combination repair outfit from the early 20th century. Manufactured in Lancaster, Pennsylvania, these rugged cast-iron machines were designed for farmers, blacksmiths, and remote repair crews. One of its clever features is the hinged top plate, which acts both as an anvil and as a vertical backstop for a hand-cranked drill press. It could also be equipped with either a grinding wheel or a forge blower, depending on the setup. Champion catalogs described it as a high-grade combination tool built for service, offering a 6-in-1 solution where electricity wasn't available. The device was protected under 2 United States patents issued in 1920 and 1921, which highlighted its convertible design, including its ability to clamp, drill, and grind without changing attachments. While exploring an old cistern on a relative's property, I came across this large pyramid-shaped structure inside. It's about 6 feet tall, with a pipe sticking out of the top that appears to have been cut. There are also some odd holes between the bricks. Does anyone know what this was used for? What you've found is a stepped brick cistern filter, a once common type of in-ground rainwater filtration system used throughout the 19th and early 20th centuries. The porous bricks and internal filter media, such as charcoal or sand, trapped sediment and debris as water slowly seeped into the inner chamber. The concept dates back centuries, but designs like this became especially widespread in the 1800s, particularly in rural America. Their use declined in the mid-20th century as modern plumbing and centralized water treatment became the standard. I found this solid piece of metal in a box of old tools. It's pretty heavy and has a clean hole running through the center. There might be a faint marking that says "Made in Hungary." Does anyone know what it is? What you found is a scythe anvil, also known by its German name, Dengelstock. This small, heavy tool was used by farmers to sharpen scythe blades directly in the field. The pointed end would be driven into a tree stump or block of wood, and the blade was then hammered against the flat top to thin and reshape its cutting edge. This method, called peening, helped maintain a razor-sharp edge while removing much less metal than grinding. The tradition of peening scythes goes back centuries, but portable anvils like this one became common throughout Europe in the 19th century. German-speaking immigrants later brought the practice to the United States, particularly to rural communities in Pennsylvania. I found this surprisingly heavy device at a thrift store. There's a knob on top with directional arrows, but turning it doesn't seem to do anything. The brand name appears to be Heka. Does anyone know what this is? What you found is a vintage laboratory centrifuge from the mid-20th century, most likely produced by the Swedish company Kifa and co-branded under the name Heka. This type of machine was commonly used in medical laboratories to spin test tubes at high speeds, separating substances by density, for example, isolating plasma from blood cells. Devices like this were standard equipment in clinical and research labs throughout Europe. One nearly identical centrifuge is preserved in the South Australian Medical Heritage Society, showing how widely these machines were used around the world. I found this concrete structure deep in a forest in southern Germany. It's about 2 meters tall and has 1948 etched on the side. What could this have been used for? What you found is a one-man air raid shelter, or Einmann bunker, built in post-war Germany around 1948. These small concrete capsules were originally designed during World War II to protect air raid wardens or factory fire guards from shrapnel and bomb blasts. The concept originated in the 1930s and was widely used across Germany by the 1940s. During the war, thousands were built by companies like Daewoo and Siemens, as factories were required to install them for on-site personnel. While most were made of concrete, Early prototypes were built from steel, and some models even had internal phones or lights so the occupant could report fires or incoming bombs. After the war, nearly all of these shelters were dismantled as part of Allied denazification efforts. I found this ornate metal box while helping my father-in-law clean out some old belongings. It's lightweight, has a removable lid, and features decorative patterns around the sides. Does anyone know what it is? What you found is a Chinese opium snuff jar, most likely from the late Qing era, around the late 1800s to early 1900s. These small metal containers, often made of lightweight brass or bronze, were used to store powdered or paste opium. The practice of opium smoking in China became widespread in the 19th century after British traders began exporting Indian opium in exchange for tea. By the late 1800s, nearly 10% of China's population was addicted. These jars became common household items among both the elite and the working class. When Chinese immigrants brought opium culture to America, particularly to cities like San Francisco, jars like this one also appeared in opium dens across the West Coast. I saw this strange concrete structure with a caged roof sitting in the middle of a lake. From where I stood, the inside looked dry. Does anyone know what this structure is? What you've seen is likely a spillway intake structure, part of a system designed to manage excess water from lakes or reservoirs. The structure you saw probably connects to a larger channel, pipe, or tunnel that routes overflow water away from the lake, especially during storms or flooding. Spillways play a crucial role in dam safety. Their designs vary depending on terrain, water volume, and downstream risks, and may include features like chutes, steps, or siphons to slow the flow and minimize erosion. What is this strange little jug with a hole in it? I found it in my grandfather's garage, but no one in the family knows what it was used for. What you have is most likely a Southeast Asian or Middle Eastern style tobacco pipe. A cigarette was inserted into the side hole. These pipes were often used to keep the smell and residue off the hands, especially since cigarettes of that era were usually made without filters and left tar stains and a strong odor. It served the same purpose as the long cigarette holders that women often used during the first half of the 20th century. In the last video, I asked you to guess what this stainless steel kitchen tool might be used for. Everyone had great guesses, and most of you thought it was used to lift boiled eggs out of hot water, and that's most likely correct. However, it could also be a flat whisk, used for stirring sauces or mixing ingredients in shallow pans. Thank you to everyone who participated and shared your guesses. A special shout out to Jomac for being the first to correctly identify it. All right, it's time for another mystery item. Take a look at these flat plastic pieces. What do you think they might be used for? Leave your guesses in the comments, and I'll reveal the answer in the next video. Thank you for watching. If you enjoyed the video, please like and subscribe. Your support motivates me to create more videos. See you next time.